You guys can line up at the mics for your questions in the room, and then we'll alternate with questions online. Does anybody have any questions for our presenters? Oh, we've got one.
I was just wondering, to what extent have you collaborated with other health authorities on the development of this guidance in terms of what simple language looks like?
Thank you. So we have received comments from other regulatory authorities, but this guidance was done primarily from FDA and OHRP's perspective. But when we were looking at the ICH E6, which is the Good Clinical Practice Guidance, that was an international project, and we do have some language in there about the importance of clear and concise information about informed consent, as well as consulting with the participants and stakeholders. Thank you for that question.
Satya Ganeshan from UCB. Is there any requirement for putting information for access for their own data by the participants should they need it, or how do you inform them of that if they need that information?
Thank you for that question. You asked about whether the consent could include information about how participants themselves may access their data. This would be an example of what may be appropriate additional information. And it's not addressed in the regs, but it is something that may be appropriate to include, and it could go into the key information section as well as the main consent. Thank you.
Do we have any online questions?
A question directed to Dr. Karesh. How do we approach consenting subjects for research that use an app that requires subjects another consent to collect sensitive info like geolocation or attitudes?
I'm sorry. So the question was, how do we get in consent when you're using another app?
Yes. How do we approach consenting subjects for research that use an app which requires subjects to consent to collect sensitive information like geolocation?
Collecting sensitive information.
So if the sensitive information is being collected, that's part of the consent. And it doesn't matter if it's being collected because they self-report where they are or because they have holding a device in their pocket when they travel, right? So sensitive information is consent information that has to be included no matter how that, in this case, geolocation data is going to be collected.
Thank you.
Do we have any more online questions?
Sure. Is key information required for all studies or only certain studies, or studies initially IRB approved after a certain date?
Great question. So the question was, is key information required for all studies or just certain studies? So just to reiterate what Suzanne said, if it falls under the revised common rule, it's required now. If the study falls under FDA regs, it's under the proposed rule, so it's not required yet. If the proposed rule for FDA was finalized as it currently stands, then it would match the revised common rule. That's intentional and deliberate, right? Want to try to harmonize this whenever possible. So if it becomes required for FDA studies, and now when it's required for OHRP and the revised common rule, it's all studies. There is no caveat where if you're only enrolling a small number of patients or participants, or you're only having a limited number of sites or something, no, there won't be carve-out exceptions as is currently proposed. Anything you would add?
No, good.
Go ahead, Nora. Do
Thank you.
we have
Another
any more?
question. This was addressed to Suzanne. Is the same type of approach expected for other types of consent form? For example, pregnancy consent or optional testing consents?
Thank you for the question. I believe you asked if this type of approach is appropriate for other types of consent, like for pregnant people. And the answer is the key information section must be included and the consent must begin with that. We want you to be creative about the approaches. So how you do it is really open and up to you guys, what's most appropriate for pediatrics may be different than a geriatric community. I think.
And with pregnant people in particular, the known teratogenicity, the known side effects or harm of the drug could impact whether or not it rises to the level of key information or not.
Thank you.
Great. It looks like we have a question in the room.
Hello, my name is Sherry Lee. I'm from Premier Regulatory Consulting. I had a question about implementation. So when you have a final rule, how long do you expect clinical trials to start implementing it?
Thank you for the question. The question is, how long will it take for the information to be required once the proposed rule is, once it's finalized and published? Usually there is a certain date within the final rule for proposing for the actual finalization. I'm not sure. It will depend. It might be 90 days, 60 days or 90 days.
That's part of why we're getting the word out now and why Suzanne stressed start now, right? The idea is that this is a good thing, right? And so there shouldn't be delay. People, this audience and everybody else should think, gosh, if this might help study participants, let's do it now, right? So that's the impetus, even though it may not be required yet.
It also has been out there now since 2017 when the revised common rule was finalized. I realize that's for federally funded research, but the word's been getting out and we're pleased to issue this guidance now so that you can help prepare your consent forms in the way that will be appropriate once the final rule comes out.
Thank you. Do we have any more online questions?
Yes. Can you please provide or let us know where to find a Microsoft Word template for the bubble form of the informed consent?
So thanks for the question about the template and the bubble formats. You don't have to follow that exact format, but if you do, there are ways you can prepare the bubbles. I found them in the shapes section as well, and you can put the text within those shapes, so it'll automatically shuffle the size of the bubble.
I want to reiterate what you just said. It's not intended to be a template. What's in the draft guidance is an example. And we really strongly encourage industry and sponsors and investigators to innovate and to think of other ways that it could be presented that might be even better. But it's an example. It doesn't have to be followed by any means.
Thanks.
Any more questions?
Dr. Karesh again. Does a consent form which is less than 5 pages require key elements?
Thank you for that question. Does the consent form that is less than 5 pages require the key elements? Yes. As Alyson mentioned, those required elements are in the regulations now and have been for many years. And whatever the length of the consent form is, it has to have all of those elements. That said, maybe for a simple study, you could do a shorter key information section. And if the key information section includes all of those required elements, that could be sufficient for the consent form. So it could be as short as a couple pages. I know that's not realistic all the time, especially for FDA regulated products, but brevity does help with comprehension. Thank you.
I think that's all the time we have for questions. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.